All right then. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is February 7th, 2021. This is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority being conducted in Albany and also remotely. We have in attendance by telephone Chairman Bradley.
Yes, I'm here.
We have by video Commissioner Fan and Commissioner Ford. Staff in attendance, we have General Counsel Meyerhoff on video. We also have Deputy Commissioner of Licensing Roberts on the telephone.
I'm on, thanks.
And myself, Secretary Donahue, in the Albany offices. We have 7 items on today's calendar. They are all requests from Council's office for emergency orders of summary suspension. The first item is agenda number 00392QQ, Queens OP 1274968, Gold City Coffee, Inc.
Good afternoon, members. This is Kayla O'Donnell on behalf of Council's office. We are here today to seek a suspension for this licensee for serving patrons inside in violation of the governor's executive orders. On February 5th at around 12:15 a.m., SLA investigator Cervalli and the task force visited the licensed premises. Upon arrival, investigator Cervalli observed and photographed the sign in front of the premises, which reflects the trade name New Superstar KTV, which is not a trade name authorized by the SLA. After conducting surveillance, the task force determined that even though it was after the 10 p.m. curfew and even though the roll-down gate was fully closed and locked, patrons were still being admitted inside through a rear door. A security guard was acting as a lookout with video cameras mounted outside the door, as well as a wireless radio. The security guard was not wearing a face covering as required, and he was also not licensed as required. The security guard was found to be in possession of ketamine and was arrested. Inside, investigator Cervalli found 3 rooms being used. In total, there were 22 patrons hanging out inside the premises, drinking alcohol and listening to music. There were 2 employees in addition to the security guard, and neither was properly wearing a face covering as required. In the first room, there were 6 unmasked patrons. One of the patrons was arrested for possessing large quantities of ketamine and ecstasy. As the photos in the record before you depict, there was alcohol on the table in this room, but there was no food on the table. The second room had 6 patrons who were alerted by staff to put their masks on before the task force could get to the room. Again, the photos depict a lot of alcohol on the table, but no food. The third room had 10 patrons who had also been alerted by staff to put their masks on before the task force could get to the room. And again, the photos depict only alcohol, no food on the table. The individual in charge indicated that he rents out the rooms for $30 an hour after 10 p.m. and found this opportunity on the internet. All transactions were in cash and there were no receipts or records of any kind. The kitchen was found to be closed with the only food inside being watermelon and grapes. The licensee is being charged with violating Executive Orders 202.16, 202.41, 202.52, 202.74, 202.81, and failure to supervise. Additionally, as a result of the inspection of the premises, the licensee is being charged with non-bona fide, unauthorized trade name, books and records, failure to comply for having an unlicensed security guard, having the roll-down gate closed and locked with patrons inside, not having a valid assembly permit, uninspected fire extinguishers, defective emergency exit signs, and unsecured gas tanks. Notably, this is not the first time this licensee has been found allowing indoor consumption when it was prohibited, locking the roll-down gate to try to hide this violation, and utilizing an unlicensed security guard. The licensee committed these violations just a few months ago on August 28th of 20. Additionally, violations and potentially drugs may have been found inside the premises on that date. However, the manager refused to open the door for police to conduct an inspection inside. The licensee has pled not guilty in that case. In fact, this is the 3rd time that this licensee has been found utilizing unlicensed security guards. It's the 3rd time being charged with a books and records violation. It's the 2nd time being found without a public assembly permit, and the 2nd time being found with defective emergency exit signs. The first time for each of these was after an inspection of the premises on January 16th of 2016. The licensee's $7,000 CNC offer was accepted by the full board in that case. This licensee undeniably creates a danger to the health, safety, and welfare of its patrons and employees by way of its lawless actions. It absolutely cannot be trusted to continue to operate while the charges are litigated, as it was already given this opportunity with the case from August, and here we are with even more violations. As such, an emergency order of summary suspension is required. Thank you.
Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
So they've paid $7,000 in total since 2016?
Correct.
Okay. And in the report, it mentions a person in charge who, according to the report, has been in the position for 3 years, and his date of birth is April 1998, which makes him only 22 right now. Is that right?
That sounds
And
right.
so is a 19-year-old allowed to be in charge of a licensed premise?
As a matter of law,
I know he's allowed to sell alcohol, but
perhaps, but
okay.
we spend a lot of time, and as you know, spend a lot of time taking care to make sure that licensees identify who will be supervising the premises, whether it would be an owner or a manager, and we look at personal questionnaires for them and the like. So I think you've made a fair point that in addition to everything else we found here, if that is indeed the case, that is a failure to supervise, adds to the failure to supervise, to put somebody who would be, I don't know, of a younger age and perhaps of less experience in charge of the premises.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Gary. I don't have any questions. Thank you, Kayla.
Commissioner Ford, any questions?
Kayla, did you say when they were licensed?
February 25th, 2014.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
All right, Chairman Bradley, any questions?
Yeah, Kayla, the pending case was not a summary case. It was just the EO violations, and they pled not guilty to them?
Correct.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
All right, then I'll call for the vote of the full board. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by counsel and pictures submitted into evidence by the investigator, it's clear that this location is presenting imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare in a number of different aspects. I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford.
Based on evidence presented by counsel, I'm also voting to summarily suspend this license.
And Chairman Bradley.
Based on counsel's presentation, it's clear the licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare. I'm voting to summarily suspend.
All right, then the next item I have is 392RR. It's Suffolk OP 1316692, the Calverton Grill Inc.
Good afternoon, members of the authority. Robert Buckley for counsel's office. The premises that's you're considering now has a trade name of Big Kahuna at 1730 East Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, New York, which is in the North Shore of Suffolk County. An investigator from the State Liquor Authority visited the location on this past Friday, February 5th, 2021, from 9:05 p.m. to 9:55 p.m. The basis for Investigator Pope going to the location is the licensee has filed a change in method operation application. Members, you initially approved this full on-premise liquor license in September of 2019. The licensee in this application asked for the full panoply of entertainment, recorded music, live music, karaoke, DJs, and patron dancing. However, members, although Chairman Bradley, apparently you didn't vote on that day in September of 2019, the members approved the application subject to only allowing recorded music. So no DJ, no live music, no promoters, no dancing. So this licensee has come back to you after a year of being licensed. It was licensed on September 13th, 2019, asking for a change in the method of operation to include all those things, DJ, karaoke, patron dancing, etc. That matter has been put over to your meeting of March 3rd of 2021. Again, on this past Friday, Investigator Pope went to the location, which is located in a shopping plaza, again on Jericho Turnpike, a major thoroughfare in North Shore, Suffolk County. Upon approaching the premises, he heard loud music. When he entered, he was encountered by security guards, but once he described why he was there, security guards allowed him to enter. In fact, the premises had 4 security guards, and it turned out that none had signed a security guard log, and one had an expired license a few days prior. And when Investigator Pope and the other member of the task force team entered, in fact, there was a DJ with DJ equipment, as you can see in the report, again, contrary to the stipulation upon which the license was issued. Investigator Pope met Luis Tejada, who was one of the principals, along with Mr. Tejada's wife, Rosa Tejada. They indicated that they would manage the premises themselves. Looking at Mr. Tejada's application, it appears he's been involved for more than 20 years in licensed premises. Almost all of them had some affiliation with being a billiard parlor, having pool tables. This location indicated would be a restaurant, but it would have 9 pool tables, which occupied quite a large part of the layout. I did look at the the licensee's website, which indicates that there's no pool playing, which according to the current DOH guidelines and SLA guidelines, no pool playing is allowed. But in any event, on this occasion of the evening of last Friday, the investigator saw multiple persons, and photographs that he attached to his report described show people sitting at the bar, standing up. There even seemed to be some hookah pipes. But in any event, eventually, Investigator Pope, along with Mr. Tejada, did a head count, and the premises capacity is 162 persons. Therefore, under the 50% permission under the current executive orders, they're allowed to have only 81 persons. Investigator Pope only got to 120 persons when it was no longer feasible to count anymore. He approximates that at least 140 to 150 people approaching, again, their otherwise maximum capacity. And it indicates in this report that Mr. Tejada said these security guards were not checking the amount of people coming in and out of the premises. And Mr. Tejada himself, who's in his 50s and appears to be the oldest person, looks like from the photographs, the demographics of the clientele mostly appear to be people in their 20s. Mr. Tejada was not wearing a face covering when approached, nor were some bartenders and some kitchen help. So Mr. Tejada, not wearing a face covering, allowing that many persons in the location, subject himself to possibly being infected with the coronavirus, as well as he opened his doors in full knowledge of the executive orders, again, being a long-time licensee and having a premises where on the license itself, it's printed. It's a 2 a.m. close, as well as a 2 a.m. closing as well. The licensee is requesting a change to 4 a.m. But again, on the license itself, it says no DJ and all those other things. And in clear violation of the executive orders and the stipulations imposed by you, the members, Mr. Tejada was in clear violation. Again, he allowed these persons to come into his location. And in this instance, he's a social host. He opened his doors and let as many people as could fit inside the location. As well as Investigator Pope indicated that he asked Mr. Tejada for liquor invoices, and there was not a full, complete set. And as the report says, Mr. Tejada was told by Investigator Pope that he'd be hearing from the State Liquor Authority, and therefore, on behalf of Counsel's Office, I request that the members of the authority consider an emergency summary order of summary suspension of this full liquor license.
Thank you, Bob. A couple additional points. First, to clarify, while there is an application for a change of method pending, the reason we sent investigators out to this location was due to complaints we had received that this type of operation was going on in this location, and we wanted to check on that, and this is what we found. The head count, it's true, they were exceeding 50%, but understand, of course, members, as you do, the head count is for people seated at tables to be eating dinner with alcoholic beverages served with their dinner. And as you can see from the pictures, this licensee turned his pool hall restaurant into a nightclub using a DJ. And of all people who have licenses with the State Liquor Authority, no one knows better than he does that he's not allowed to do that because he's applied to get all those permissions in the last several months and has not received them. So with that, I turn it over to the members.
All right, with that, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Buckley.
Commissioner Ford, any questions?
So to be clear, Mr. Buckley, they were licensed as a pool hall. I mean, to have pool tables, but none of them were there. They'd all been removed. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Commissioner Ford, they applied initially as a restaurant with an auxiliary or secondary business as a billiard hall. And according to the write-up from licensing for this change in method of operation application, it's sort of a restaurant / billiard parlor. It would seem, looking from the menu, it's more so a tavern menu than a full restaurant menu. But in any event, it would seem that, again, looking at the licensee's website, they seem to have indicated that they were going to have pool tournaments. Again, it's not permitted. And again, as I stated before, from their website, it indicates that they're not playing pool. I'm not sure, actually, from Commissioner Ford, from the report of Investigator Pope, whether those pool tables have been removed. I couldn't quite see pool tables, to be quite honest with you. But they do, since there were 9 pool tables in the diagram requested in the application, again, that occupies quite a large amount of the space that's devoted to the premises.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
That answered your question.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
I'm going to call for the vote of the members then. Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by counsel, it's clear that this licensee has not been following the restrictions that he was given at full board in 2019 and continues to violate the governor's executive orders surrounding COVID-19. This location poses an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on the case and evidence as presented by counsel, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Chairman Bradley, your vote.
Based on council's presentation, I'm voting to summarily suspend. It's clear this licensee is a risk to public health, safety, and welfare.
But the next item I have is 392SS, Suffolk OP 1320021, Liam's Landing, Inc.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bradley, Commissioner Fan, and Commissioner Ford. William Bradford, Counsel's Office. I'm here today to request that the board summarily suspend this licensee for repeatedly violating a number of executive orders and ignoring his responsibility to ensure the safety of his patrons and the community in which he operates. The licensee, Liam's Landing, Inc., has been licensed since January of 2020. The licensed premises is located at 248 Ketchum Avenue, Amityville, New York. There are several compliance inspections that are part of this request. On December 22nd, 2020, Investigator McGee and New York State Police Investigator Dillon performed a compliance check of the licensed premises. When they entered, they observed a bartender with a mask worn below the chin, leaving the mouth and nose exposed. The owner arrived several minutes after the investigators arrived and told the investigators that he, quote, can't be here all the time to supervise the staff, unquote. The licensee will be charged with violating EO 202.16 and failing to supervise the premises. Again, on January 9th, 2021, at approximately 6:40 p.m., Investigator Bygess of the EO Task Force conducted an inspection of the premises. During this inspection, the investigator observed a bartender not wearing a facial mask properly, not social distancing between patrons, there's no proper spacing and no dividers between patrons. They also observed patrons standing and drinking in what appeared to be an overcrowded bar, pursuant to the investigator's description. They observed approximately 40 patrons inside the premises, and there were more patrons coming in. The investigator observed alcoholic beverages being sold without accompanying food. The investigator asked to speak with the manager. The bartender advised the investigator that the manager stepped out of the facility and would be back in 5 minutes. The investigator waited 30 minutes, but the manager never arrived. The bartender showed the investigator a liquor license. However, she was unable to provide the maximum occupancy certificate. There was live music inside the bar, and with the patrons moving back and forth, it made conversation very difficult with the bartender for the investigator. The licensee will be charged with violating EO 202.16, 202.41, 202.52, failing to supervise the premises, and failing to post the maximum occupancy certificate. Again, on February 5th, 2021, Investigator Dubrino and New York State Police Investigator Bruns performed a compliance check of the premises. There was a large number of cars parked outside. There were a few patrons outside the premises smoking. When the investigators went inside, they observed 2 female bartenders that were not wearing their face masks correctly, and another employee who walked behind the bar who did not have his face mask on correctly. All 3 of the staff members wore their face masks under their chin. There were patrons standing around with drinks in their hands, not seated at tables. There was no social distancing evident at the bar. Patrons were standing 2 to 3 people deep. Some patrons did not have a mask on while waiting at the bar. Investigator Dubrino asked to speak with the manager, and the bartender stated that he wasn't there. Investigator Dubrino asked her about the liquor license and was shown the license hanging on the wall. The licensee will be charged with violating EO 202.16, 202.41, and failing to supervise the premises. It's clear from the various reports that have been provided by several different investigators from the EO Task Force that this licensee has little regard for the executive orders in place to help curb the current pandemic. Prior to the most recent inspection that occurred Friday night, February 5th, this licensee was put on notice of the current executive orders and the necessity to adhere to them several times. On November 23rd, 2020, Investigator McGee performed a disclosed inspection of the premises and observed employees without face masks. McGee spoke to the bartender about the purpose of her inspection. The notice of pleading was issued on December 29, 2020, and the licensee offered a conditional no contest plea dated January 4th, 2021, in response to those pleadings, which was pending. On December 22nd, 2020, McGee again conducted a disclosed inspection of the premises and found violations which the investigator then discussed with the owner. On January 9, 2021, Investigator Bygess conducted a disclosed inspection during which the investigator discussed the violations and spoke with staff. On January 25, 2021, Investigator Stravali emailed the principal and provided guidance documents on how to comply with these executive orders, as well as a cease and desist notice. And yet once again on Friday night, investigators found the premises being operated with blatant disregard for the current executive orders. Counsel's office respectfully requests that the board issue an emergency order suspending this licensee in order to protect the health and safety of the public.
Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, Tom. Thank you.
Chairman Bradley, do you have any questions?
No, no questions.
With that, I'll call for the vote. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence submitted by counsel, this location continues to violate the governor's executive orders designed to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Again, it's shocking to see pictures of people standing with no masks on and a couple of people deep at a bar at this time. And this licensee really have operated more during the pandemic than not. And so All of this summarize that they are an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
All right, Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
After several, a few visits, warnings, so forth, it appears that this licensee has chosen not to heed any of them. So I find them a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, and I vote to summarily suspend this licensee.
All right, Chairman Bradley, your vote, please.
Based on council's presentation, I vote to summarily suspend. It's clear this licensee is a risk to the public health, safety, and welfare.
The next item I have is 392-T, Kings OP 1314807. It's SO3 Alpha Corp.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Alexander Lloyd here for Council's Office. SO3 Alpha Corp. DBA Carnival is located at 507 Grand Street, Brooklyn, New York. It was issued an OP license on 6/27/2019. On 2/3/2021, SLA Investigator Davis visited the licensed premises at approximately 8:35. During his visit, he observed a fully enclosed dining structure in the backyard of the licensed premises. Inside, he observed at least 27 tables, mostly with 2 chairs per table. He counted at least 32 patrons eating, drinking, and smoking hookah inside. He described the structure as having plastered walls and a wooden roof. He counted multiple electric heaters, both standing and hanging from the ceiling. There were also ceiling fans and projectors to display TV. He counted 10 window panels that were removable, as explained by the manager there, but they were closed during the inspection. Additionally, the person there during the inspection, Mr. Santiago, was not initially forthcoming with his role as an employee at the licensed premises. Initially, he claimed to be partial owner, but then when asked to present identification, he claimed to be solely a manager. This indicates these 32 patrons eating inside this enclosed dining structure in the backyard of the licensed premises. It's a violation of the executive orders 202.3 and 202.81. At this time, the licensee cannot claim to be unaware of the executive order and the DOH guidance and SLA guidance associated with them. They've been in place for over a month now. The executive orders were designed and implemented to prevent the spread of COVID-19, and the licensee clearly cannot be trusted to follow these important laws and regulations. At this time, there is no more imminent risk to the public health, safety, and welfare than to permit individuals to dine indoors in New York City. Therefore, Council's office respectfully requests that the members summarily suspend this license according to 401(3) of SAPA.
All right, then, Commissioner Fan, any questions?
Oh, thank you, Alex. I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Ford, any questions?
Yeah, do they have any other adverse history, Alex?
No adverse history.
And this area was in the rear, you said. It was an enclosed area in the rear of the establishment, like outside in the rear of the establishment?
Right. The building has a backyard to it. And the licensed premises does include the backyard. So that is part of the licensed premises, yes.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
It's based on evidence presented by council. It's clear that this licensee is continuing indoor service, which has been illegal for quite some weeks now. And due to an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I am voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on evidence as presented by council, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Chairman Bradley.
Based on council's presentation, I'm voting to summarily suspend. It's clear the licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare.
All right, then the next item I have is 392UU, Queens OP 1143476, Johnny's Restaurant and Bar and Lounge, Inc.
Good afternoon again, Chairman Bradley, and Commissioner Fan, Commissioner Ford. William Brennan again for council's office. I'm here to request that the board summarily suspend this licensee for blatantly violating executive orders 202.16, 202.74, 202.81, 202.41, failing to supervise the licensed premises, and failure to conform with local governmental regulations. The licensee, Johnny's Restaurant, Bar, and Lounge, has been licensed since November of 2003. The licensed premises is located at 107-09 Rockaway Boulevard, Ozone Park, New York. On February 6, 2021, Investigator Stravali and members of the EO Task Force conducted an inspection of the licensed premises. They found tinted glass on the front door and metal gates over the front windows, obstructing their view into the interior of the premises. The lights on the exterior sign were turned off, giving the appearance that the premises was actually closed. Upon entering, the investigators found that the licensee had constructed a fully enclosed room in the rear yard of the premises. There were 4 walls and a roof fully encapsulating the interior of the room. There were heaters, 2 large screen televisions, and electric lighting. The investigators observed at least 38 patrons inside the premises, eating, drinking, and some smoking hookah. The tables were not spaced 6 feet apart, and patrons were not practicing social distancing. The licensee started asking patrons to leave when the investigators arrived, but it was already after the 10 p.m. curfew. There were numerous life and safety issues, including illegal door hardware on the kitchen egress door, an obstructed fire extinguisher, uninspected fire extinguisher, unsecured compressed gas tanks, defective emergency lighting, defective smoke detector, and several other code violations. In addition, the licensee did not have a valid permit to allow patrons to smoke hookah. The licensee was operating inside the enclosure located in the rear yard of the premises, despite a stipulation imposed by Community Board 10 prohibiting any outdoor area from being licensed. Investigator Stravali's report and the photographs that he provided clearly show that this license has little regard for the executive orders that are in place to help curb the current pandemic. The manner in which this licensee is conducting business poses a clear and immediate threat to the licensee's patrons and the community in which he operates. Council's office respectfully requests that the board issue an emergency order suspending the licensee in order to protect the safety and health of the public.
Commissioner Fan, any questions?
Bill, do you know more about the initial cell to minor that was called in?
No, I do not. There was no indication that they found, any evidence of that. But I will have a follow-up discussion with Investigator Stravali, and if indeed we have sufficient evidence, they'll be charged.
Isn't it weird that someone is calling 911 for the sale to minor?
I couldn't comment on that, Commissioner Pan. I don't really know. But at any rate,
Fair enough.
we're just here about the evidence that was provided, and if we do find a violation, surely we'll address it.
Anything else, Commissioner Fan?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, any questions?
Yeah, Bill, was the roll down gate, was it locked?
I don't believe it was locked because the investigators were able to gain entry. However, from the pictures, you can see that it clearly gave the appearance that this place, if you walk by in front of it, was closed. In addition, they got there around 10, and as the pictures show, it was in full swing. There were people smoking and drinking and eating, and the investigators' report indicates that the only move to disperse the party came after the investigators went in, who were also accompanied by New York City Police Department officials.
Thank you. No further questions.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no question.
I would now ask for the vote, please. Commissioner Fan,
Based on evidence presented by Council Brennan, this location continues to pose an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare by allowing indoor service and violating the governor's executive orders designed to prevent the spread of COVID-19. I'm therefore voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on evidence as presented by council, I am also voting to summarily suspend this licensee.
And Chairman Bradley.
Based on council's presentation, I'm voting to summarily suspend. It's clear the licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare.
Next item, 392 V, New York OP 1269299, 54th Street Hospitality, LLC.
Hi, this is Kayla O'Donnell again on behalf of Council's office, here to seek a suspension for a licensee who is found serving 32 patrons inside the premises in New York City in violation of Executive Order 202.81. Last night, SLA investigator McKenna visited the licensed premises and found a dining structure set up outside in front of the licensed premises. The structure was made of wood, and as the photos in the record before you depict, was enclosed on 4 sides with glass or plexiglass. On one side of the structure, there were 8 sliding glass doors that created 4 openings. And on that side only, there was a 1 to 2 foot gap between the top of the doors and the roof that allowed a little airflow in. However, the structure is still in violation and considered indoor dining as it failed to meet the requirement of having 2 open sides. Importantly, the manager admitted that the licensee was aware that the dining structure was not legal. The manager had told investigator McKenna that another agency inspected the structure a week ago and told the licensee that the structure had to have another side that was 50% open air. The manager stated that the business is waiting for the construction company who built the structure to return to alter the structure to make one more side open air. Instead of doing the right thing and waiting for the structure to be legal, the licensee put profits before the health of its patrons and allowed 32 patrons to dine at 12 tables inside this illegal structure, which had insufficient airflow. The licensee admitted to being warned about the structure, yet continued to serve inside. Therefore, the SLA can have no faith that if the licensee were not suspended, it would not continue to serve patrons inside the structure, which puts the health, safety, and welfare of those patrons and their families in danger during this pandemic. In consideration of them, an emergency order of summary suspension is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. I would just add that while this place may have been inspected at a time when the side that's facing the restaurant had its doors substantially open so that the inspector, whoever it was from what that unnamed agency, might have believed that side was open. The way it is sitting right now with small gaps in these sliding doors, apparently just large enough to allow waiters to come in and serve these patrons in here, that would not be an open side either. So it's not as if they popped the glass out of one side of this place that it would have become legal. And when you have a licensee who's basically admitting that they know that they're not complying, but they're open anyway, there's really no way we can count on them to follow the law, whether it's for outside service, inside service, or frankly, anything else. So thank you.
All right, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Kayla. I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
Kayla, did you say when they were licensed?
August 22nd, 2013.
Any other adverse history of note?
No, there's not.
Thank you. No other questions.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
I have no questions.
With that, I'll ask for the vote of the full board. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on the evidence presented by Council It's clear that this location is continuing indoor service despite warnings and knowledge that their structure is not in compliance with law. This location is therefore an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare. I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on evidence as presented by council, I also vote to summarily suspend this license.
And Chairman Bradley.
Based on council's presentation, I'm voting to summarily suspend. It's clear the licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare.
Next item I have is 392 WW, Queens RW 1288759, Crispy Chicken Restaurant, LLC.
Again, Alex Floyd for Council's Office. Council's Office submits the subject licensee, Crispy Chicken Restaurant LLC, to the members of the authority to consider an emergency order of summary suspension. The licensee is located at 21552 Jamaica Avenue, Queens Village, New York. An RW license was issued to the licensee on 11/2/2015. This is based on 3 different visits to the licensed premises. The first visit was by New York officers of Vice on January 2nd, 2021 at approximately 9:50 p.m. Vice officers set up a surveillance post outside of the licensed premises. During this surveillance, they observed individuals entering the sidewalk basement hatch while the security grills were rolled down. A visit was made on January 22nd, 2021, again by Vice. This time the officer surveillance post outside of the licensed premises. Again, they observed individuals entering the sidewalk basement hatch while the security grills were rolled down out front. At this time, the officers decided to enter the licensed premises through that same sidewalk hatch. Once inside, they observed a woman who appeared to be a bartender behind the bar, opening bottles of beer. They observed 15 patrons inside the premises smoking hookah and drinking, not all of them wearing masks. And this, as stated before, the security grills were still rolled down. And they spoke with a Mr. Francis Reyes Castillo, who admitted being an employee, but would not state his role. So he did not claim to be a manager, owner, chef, bartender. Finally, on February 4th, 2021, investigators with from the NYPD Vice. Again, a surveillance post was set up outside the licensed premises. Investigator Travali observed on the front of the licensed premises an unapproved trade name, El Catracho, and observed tinted glass. The officers and then investigator Travali entered the licensed premises through that same basement sidewalk hatch as the security grill was still rolled down. Once inside, they observed 4 persons. 2 of them were not wearing masks. One appeared to be quickly cleaning up the restaurant. Then there was an interaction with the manager and also with the owner. The person who claimed to be the manager was the same person that the Vice officers had interacted with during their previous visit, Mr. Castillo. He claimed that the owner was not there, but that the owner could be reached via phone. So he dialed the owner, Mr. Pascal, who is the owner on record with our SLA records and workflow, spoke to investigator Travali via phone. The manager stated that right now, Mr. Pascal is living in Texas and that the entity, the restaurant, had actually been transferred to him being Mr. Castillo. but that the records with us had simply not been updated yet. Investigator Stravali asked, of course, the owner, Mr. Pascal, for all of the records that would be associated with the licensed premises. Mr. Pascal stated that the beer that was served there was purchased from the Rite Aid in the neighborhood, an example of an unauthorized purchase, and that because of this, there were no receipts being kept on the licensed premises. Additionally, Investigator Stravali observed on the outside that there were cameras, so he asked to view the CCTV footage, and Mr. Pascal refused to show him that, or stated no, of course, via the phone. Investigator Stravali continued to inspect the licensed premises. He observed nicotine hookah product on the licensed premises. Again, the security grill was rolled down, so any of those 4 persons inside would not have been able to leave the licensed premises via the front door. He also observed an uninspected fire extinguisher, extension cords being used as permanent wiring, an unsecured compressed gas tank, and an open electrical box. Due to the number of executive order violations, the persons not wearing their masks and the persons indoors during these times, and the numerous other ABC and local regulation violations, it's clear that this licensed premises is not being supervised adequately. At this time, the licensee cannot claim to be unaware of the executive orders and the SLA and DOH guidance. They've all been in place for months now. Additionally, the licensee was visited on 1/22, and the same person, that manager identified as Mr. Castillo, was warned by Vice that people are not allowed to be indoors at this time. And during the third visit on 2/4, again, people were observed indoors. The executive orders were designed and implemented to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Clearly, after the second visit, it's obvious that the licensee cannot be expected to follow these important rules. At this time, permitting individuals to dine indoors in New York City and failing to strictly enforce mask regulations is a serious risk to the public health, safety, and welfare of both the patrons and the rest of New York City. Therefore, Counsel's Office respectfully requests that the members summarily suspend this license.
Thank you, Alex. I would also add that this is one of the reasons why availing is such a problem. It looks like this Mr. Castillo is somebody who the board has not vetted to run this establishment. He's running it. When he was caught violating the executive orders in January, he thought that the right thing to do was to pretend that he wasn't the manager or owner of the place. So he stopped answering questions, thinking that that would somehow convey a level of supervision that we would be satisfied with, which we certainly aren't. So we will investigate the availing as well. But it's clear that Mr. Castillo and Mr. Pascal can't be trusted to operate this location, and that the executive orders will continue to be violated if they have a license. Thank you.
All right then, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions? You're muted, Commissioner Fan.
So this license was issued when?
The license was issued November 2nd, 2015.
2015. Okay. Because I'm looking at this, the food service establishment permit that they have to serve food was 2017, still under Crispy Chicken Restaurant. But then the El Catrancho Bar business was established in 2019.
Yes, I believe that's going to be part of the availing investigation. I haven't spoken with general counsel about it too thoroughly, but it appears there might also be two separate corporations potentially set up for the different people. So of course, permits and everything like that will be part of the investigation, at least as far as I understand. But like I said, need to speak with general counsel further on that.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you, Alex.
All right, Commissioner Ford, any questions?
Yeah, Alex, you said there was 3 visits, one on 121, one on 122, and what was the date of the third one?
Sorry, the first visit was January 2nd. The third visit was January 22nd. And then the third visit was with Investigator Stravali, and that was February 4th.
February 4th. Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by counsel, it's clear that this location is serving indoors. It's unclear to us who actually runs this location. For sure, this location is an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare. I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
For reasons as so stated and presented by counsel, I vote to summarily suspend this licensee as well.
And Chairman Bradley, your vote, please.
It's clear the licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, and I'm voting to summarily suspend.
All right, with that, I have no other items on today's calendar, Chairman. Do you have anything else?
No, thank you all for working on a Sunday and try to enjoy the Super Bowl.
All right, with that, this meeting is concluded. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, team.